Hi there, good evening, and we meet each other once again for the last lap to XAT. So, barely a week to go to the exam, and your preparation has reached that stage where it should be like a rocket right now. And I'm really glad that I'm taking this session today with a little more, with a little more than a week to spare. है ना, आखिरी हफ्ता मुझे लगता है यार थोड़ा मौज मस्ती के लिए छोड़ देना चाहिए. And I am sure quite a few of you are not going to study tomorrow or are not going to be in the condition to study tomorrow. So let us see, whatever the case may be, but we will sit down together and work nonetheless. So what is it that you want to know? I know आज थोड़े कम लोग आएंगे मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है क्योंकि party sharty and all, but if you are here and I am here, both of us are definitely going to work together. So as usual, if you have any question right now or during the course of the session, hit me up in the comment box. And those of you who are already subscribed to the channel, a very, very, very warm thank you. You're part of a family and I look forward to continue working with you. And in case you're somebody who's new, who is turning up for this session particularly, and you've not subscribed to the channel, just hit that subscribe button and be a part of this particular family. See, when you press subscribe, you meet us regularly. And you already know the agenda, right? We plan to go ahead and work on XAT 23. And this specifically is a session that focuses on critical reasoning. My name is Vikrant. You're on BYJU'S Exam Prep CAT channel. And we are open for all of your critical reasoning concerns right now. So, CR concerns. Arey Aditya Mehra, you don't need to censor yourself. You don't need to censor yourself, buddy. You can just be yourself with me. So don't worry. I can take it. So tell me, guys, tell me any issue with respect to critical reasoning? Because I am guessing that the emoji that you have sent is an equivalent of beeping yourself. Why would you even do that to yourself? So shall we start? अरे एजे, अपने जिंदगी में आदत है यार अपने को ये सब झेलने की, क्यों चिंता कर रहा है? Guru Prasad, namaste, good to see you once again. Okay, so the agenda is pretty straightforward. We'd look at the type of CR questions asked in the XAT, especially in the recent past, and then of course the focus will be on fine-tuning the tricks or the approach to solve the critical reasoning questions in XAT. And these things should eventually lead to a higher accuracy rate, and hopefully you would also end up saving some time. Greater efficiency too. Okay. Oh, Radha, you are also back from our morning or afternoon session. So let us go ahead and have a quick overview or review of VALR in XAT. So if we talk about the exam that was conducted this year in January, and from tomorrow on I'd have to learn to say last year, and this was the paper pattern. We had 4 RC passages and every passage carried or contained 3 questions, which meant that we have 12 RC questions. Then even these 3 were reading comprehension questions. Sachin, you want tips to understand poems? Yeah, I'd love to do that, but not in this session. Okay, this is focused on CR. Let us do that in one of those other XAT based sessions, or maybe I can create a short video for you to give you some tips. Okay, so critical reasoning 4 questions. This is what we plan to talk about today. Grammar, we talked about a lot of grammar questions at the session at 12. Then parajumble, something that we all are comfortable with, and then fill in the blanks. Last year we had fill in the blanks with 3 blanks. Then you also can get the 4 blank questions in the exam, so you need to be ready for that as well. So talking particularly about critical reasoning, all of the questions that we had last year were inference / conclusion questions. But if we look at the previous years, apart from conclusion and inference, they've also asked us questions on assumptions. That is the recent past. If we go further back, you'd also find questions that were based on strengthening and weakening the argument. that question type seem to have followed out of favor in the recent past, but that does not mean that we let our guard down. Okay, you need to ensure that you can start working on this. Okay, then so let us start with assumption questions. So is there something specific that you want to know about assumption questions? Or maybe you can share how you approach. So typically my approach is I start off by reading the question stem. It is the question stem that tells me whether it is an inference question or an assumption question or a strengthening question, whatever. Thereafter, I read the paragraph that is provided, and while reading it, I try to analyze the argument there, and if needed, I paraphrase it. I turn it into my own language so that it becomes simpler for me, easier for me to understand. And after that, I go to the answer choices and I start eliminating. And whenever I'm confused between two answer choices, I prefer using the negation test. So negation test is where I treat that the opposite of that answer choice to be true. Negate basically means contradict. So I contradict that answer choice. I take the opposite of that answer choice to be true, and then I see what impact it has on the argument. If the argument can no longer be made, then I know that the answer that I'm looking at is indeed the right assumption. On the other hand, if the argument can still be made, then I know that it is not the right assumption. Okay, so today, since we are emphasizing, we are just a week away from the exam and we are talking more about tricks, let us just use our negation test very liberally. So for every question that I show you, negate the answer choices and then tell me which one still stands. Okay, so ready? So here is your first question, and since I am blocking some of the options, let me just make my video a tad bit smaller. There you go. So you should be able to now deal with it comfortably. So just go ahead and solve this particular question. Hi, if somebody from the team is monitoring, could you please connect to Aditya one-on-one and see if we can help him? And for Aditya particularly, Aditya, if I've lost my key inside the house, I will not really look for it outside, right? This is purely an academic session, yeah, where you are working with me. So the issues that concern a different team, I doubt if this session will actually be the right forum. Huh? And so what's your take on this particular question? Go ahead and tell me. Now, I would just like to emphasize this one tiny thing. Look at this. So 4 of these can act as assumptions in this particular argument. One of these will not or cannot act as an assumption in the argument. So which one is that? Okay. So I initially told you that, okay, this time around we'll actually go ahead and use the negation test. So let's just start with the negation test. Let's negate option A. Nationalism cannot be reflected in sports. Nationalism cannot be reflected in sports. Now, the moment I take the opposite to be true, I can no longer state the second sentence. This opinion, it appeared on the pitch as well. This becomes impossible. So you realize when I negate A, I can no longer make this argument, or at least one of the arguments presented in the passage. So A is definitely an assumption, and that is why A cannot be our answer. Let's look at B. The Moroccan team supports the Palestinian cause. Negate it. The Moroccan team does not support the Palestinian cause. If that is true, then you realize that the fourth sentence can no longer be made. So there is a part of it which gets contradicted, which becomes impossible for us to state. So B should also be an assumption. Let's look at C. Colonial practices are prevalent in the modern era too. If you negate it, then you notice this entire part. The people of Western Sahara. We are no longer going to be able to state this particular part. So option C can also be ruled out. D. Nationalism is generally rooted in politics. The negation is nationalism is rarely rooted in politics. Okay, but then the moment I say that, I can no longer make this claim. So I need to eliminate D as well. E. People of Western Sahara do not regard the Israeli occupation as an injustice. Okay, people of Western Sahara regard the Israeli occupation as an injustice. And we can still make this argument. See, look at it closely. It says it probably looked less noble. Less noble, but noble nonetheless. Moreover, the sentence also uses the word probably. So even when we negate E, it is possible for us to make this argument, and that is why in this particular question, we should opt for E as our answer. So you noticed how negations can at times take care of all the biases. So if you solve it conventionally, it will become very difficult. I'll tell you why. It actually contains multiple opinions. It does not have just one opinion. It contains multiple opinions. So in such a multiple opinion scenario, if you break it down argument by argument, the entire process will become really very lengthy. So if it's only one, if you see a paragraph with just one conclusion, with just one opinion, then yes, use the conventional approach. But when you have multiple opinions, then negation of every answer choice is going to be the fastest way to the right answer for you. Okay, so AJ has definitely managed to get it right. So that's fantastic, AJ. Let's go on to our next question. So E for question number 1. Here is the next one for you. What's your take? So I'll leave you with the question and I'll give you a bit of quiet to reflect. And use the negation test this time around. Just learn it with me so that okay, so question 2, what's your answer? Just negate and tell me which option even after negation. Okay, so this time around you're looking for the assumption. So which option when negated makes this argument impossible to make? GN, you notice that option B already contradicts the argument. Look at this. The paragraph very clearly is offering you a solution. B says that we cannot make any prediction in the next step. The paragraph is giving you the next step. An assumption is supposed to provide support to the argument. It cannot oppose it. So B should not be your answer. A, irrelevant to the argument. C again is outside the scope because it is talking about practical solutions, whereas the paragraph is focusing on what is practical and what is political popular in the domain of public health can at times be contradictory. So that leaves you with D and E. Now, if you negate D, you can no longer ask the Congress to pass these 3 acts, which basically means that the entire argument becomes untenable now. So this has to be a foundational assumption here, and that is why our answer should be option D. So if you think that negation test is helping you in being faster and more accurate, fantastic. Then this session has done its job, and a like from you is going to be the opposite of a negation for me. So please go ahead and do that. Okay, here is, so the correct answer is D, and here is your next question. So it became difficult to fit it over to a single slide. So why don't you read the argument here, and then I will take you over to the question. And it is going to be a slightly different, slightly tricky question. So make sure that you read it carefully. Read it? So the key is Indian religious and ethical space is different from that of Western countries, scriptures, and then finally ethical discourse was not a one-time affair. Here is the next part of this particular question for you. And after that, on the next slide, you'll have answers. So just an extension of the core argument that has been established in the previous slide. Can anybody give me the gist of what we've just read? Okay, so here is the question for you. Read the question carefully. It is not your regulation assumption question. Answer this and then we'll go ahead and talk about it. Guru Prasad, I think we need to limit it to religion and ethics. And we also need to add to it the fact that we are different from the Western approach towards these things. Tanvi, we would also like to add that Indian approach is different from the Western approach, and it was not a one-time affair. Okay, Sachin, that was quick. So let's focus on the question. Which of the following assumptions will make the given paragraph redundant? So tell me something. When we say that, let's say whatever, when we say that at General Motors, 30 workers were made redundant. So what does it basically means? That these 30 workers are no longer required. They have been asked to leave. So if we want to make the paragraph redundant, then we would want to make that paragraph useless for us. And if you look at E says that, oh, in the Western world too, we have been doing that. Then that, in fact, vanishes the requirement. And that is why I think all of you have gone on to choose E already, which is in fact indeed the right answer choice as well. So here comes the next set. So E it is. Arey GN, don't worry. It's okay, let's have fun. So here is the next one. So you notice the word implicit. That is another way of asking us for an assumption. So go ahead, give it a shot and tell me what you think. And don't forget, today we are focusing on the negation test. So if you will. Should be easy. I think 4 of these are out of scope. So 4 of these are out of scope. They are not even bound to the confines of this particular argument. So sure. For those of us who are choosing E, let me highlight a part of this argument for you. How about this? What do you understand by among other things? Whereas E says exclusively. So we very clearly know that E is not true. Similarly, failed to maneuver, that's again false. So A is false. This is also. So these are basically, when I say, I shouldn't say false, they contradict the information provided in the paragraph. This is something that we cannot even determine. We don't even know. The paragraph does not even talk about who was at the helm in the first flight. So obviously that is not going to be an assumption required here. So between C and D, they were not adept, but how did they end up doing it then? So therefore, even this can be ruled out. Mind you, they did that. Right? And that is why the best answer for us here is C. That is in fact the only statement that is consistent with what has been stated in the paragraph. The rest of them are not even consistent. Okay. So in that sense, remember, an assumption is an unstated premise. It is supposed to support the conclusion. So any piece of information which contradicts whatever is mentioned in the paragraph or which does not support the conclusion can easily be ruled out. Okay. So with that, let's dive into our next set of questions, which are inference questions. So because this was the variety that we got a lot or almost exclusively the last year, let's just go ahead and focus a lot on this particular variety moving forward. So we know that inference basically is what can be concluded on the basis of the paragraph. So you have 5 answer choices. Every answer choice claims to be a valid conclusion on the basis of the information provided. So typically what I do is that I evaluate every conclusion and I label it as true, false, or can't say. So let's go ahead and do that for each of the answer choices moving on, and let us see what happens. So here is your 5th question. Shoot. So go ahead, just apply these labels, okay? True, false, can't say, and then we'll see. So once you are done solving it, each one of these 4 answer choices should have one of these 3 labels, okay? True, false, or can't say. Wow, more of us have joined in. I will free you well in time for your party. Just do let me know when your party starts, okay? We'll just work at that pace then. Just tell me when you need to leave. And don't say right now, because I'd not be able to leave you right now. Laksh, okay. I see that. Let's wait for 2 more responses before we start. Oh, we have 2 more responses. Okay. So Yitzhak Rabin loathed coalition politics, can't say. Israeli prime ministers are one of them was assassinated. How do we know that the rest of them are also assassinated? Obviously can't say. Parties that form the coalition also dislike one another. Yep. In every coalition there is also some co-loathing. So yes, that's true. D. Can't say. E. Can't say. So you're absolutely right in choosing option C as your answer. So that's indeed the correct choice. Satyam is asking about what my plan is. Satyam, the same plan that we generally have every year, party. So I plan to party till 12, after which I plan to meditate for 20 minutes, after which I plan to turn in. All right, so here comes the next one. Tell me. सत्यांशु कैसी कैसी बातें करता है यार. Okay, Sachin, absolutely. Once we are done discussing this question, I will definitely answer this. Huh? Where are the answers, guys? Where are the answers? Just true, false, can't say. Apply this label. Okay, so let us see. A, the Fukushima region is the most contaminated by industrial pollution. We know that it is contaminated by industrial pollution. Can we use the word most? We don't have enough data for this, so that is why this is can't say. B, the attempts at removing pollutants are half-hearted due to the huge expenses involved. Do we have anything in the paragraph to support half-hearted or huge expenses? Not really, so can't say. Option C, the state should have measured the industrial pollution rather than individuals. Goes beyond the scope, can't say. D, the world cannot go back in time to a pure and uncontaminated state. What has this got to do with this argument? This argument is primarily talking about one particular area. You remember that nuclear disaster that occurred in Japan post tsunami. I began to wonder, is this a future that awaits us all? Future versus world cannot go back in time to a pure and so this already assumes that the world has become contaminated, which is not in sync with whatever the passage states. So can't say or false, whatever you call it, you definitely not be able to call it true. Okay, E, Fukushima is adapting to a life of permanent pollution. Yep. If you look at this particular part that I have set off in boxes, brackets, we can definitely say that E is true, and that is why our answer to this particular question should be option E. And now to answer a question that who had this question? Who had? Satyam had, that Sachin had, and maybe some more of us have. What exactly is inference? So an inference or implication, for all practical purposes, should be thought of as your conclusion. So when the examiner asks which of the following is implied by the author, then these 5 options, each one of them is pretending to be the conclusion. Each one of them is saying that, hey, I can be concluded on the basis of the information provided. Now you need to check whether that claim is right or not. So whatever is given to you in the paragraph, please treat it as your premises or reasons or basis, whatever. And every answer choice has conclusion, and you by now, I hope you know that when we evaluate a conclusion, when we check a conclusion on the basis of the given premises, it is going to be true, false, or can't say. So in these questions, mostly, usually, the one that is true is right. Of course, there is a situation where 2 options are can't say, and then we have to choose one. And we will talk about a slight subtle difference between inference and conclusion in a short while from now. Okay. So we will definitely try and do that. AJ, if you want to opt for D, I'm assuming that the argument that you've given is for D. You are assuming that the world has become contaminated, whereas the paragraph tells us about only one location which has become contaminated. Whether the rest of the world will also become contaminated or not is what the author wonders. From this, we cannot conclude that the world has already become contaminated. That's the problem with D, okay? So here comes the next one. It is slightly longer, so we fit it onto 2 slides. Go ahead and read this once. Just drop in a quick yes in the comment box once you are done reading. Okay, so Mohammed Sufyan has managed to read it. GN2. Okay, so here comes the question then. Which of the following inferences follows from the passage? Give it a shot. Or is Satyam, you dropped in a no a bit too late. You can probably just go back by 10 seconds and then reread it and then join us again. Okay, so the answers are pouring in, mostly A and B. So let us check. Subjecting problems of ethics to quantifications of logic and probability can help us be better people. True. In fact, if you look at the last part, see, eliminate error and confusion, and because we are talking about morality, which deals with good and bad, right and wrong, it is obviously going to make us better people. Right decisions are going to make us better people here. Okay, B, the relationship between mathematics and morality is easy to think about but hard to understand. Is there anything in the passage that supports it? Anything in that paragraph that tells us that it is easy to think but hard to understand? Cannot be determined on the basis of the passage, so can't say. Any other answer choice? Sufyan, I can, but then the font size will become so small that you will struggle to read. It is already small enough. I mean, normally I hate to go below a font size 14 because I've realized that the moment I go below that, people start struggling to read. So that's kind of my personal limit that I stick to then. So between A and B, definitely A. In case you have any other option, we can look at that. Complicates questions and should not be used. That is false. Purely theoretical without any practical applications. False. The passage actually contradicts it. Ignores what is truly important about morality. False. So C, D and E were actually fairly easy to rule out. So that is why option A. Here is the next one. Please go ahead and read it once. Just drop in a quick yes once you are done reading it. Terrific. So Mohammed Sufyan is done. So let's just give it 7 more seconds and switch. Oh, Ritam, I did not even think of it this way. Huh? I'll just think it over and get back to you. Huh? Okay, so here is the question. And read the question carefully. All of the following can be inferred from the passage except. So it means that 4 of these should, in an ideal world, 4 of these should be true and 1 of these should be can't say or false. And that is the one that you're supposed to mark as your answer. So go ahead, shoot. Okay, A, B. Okay, so when I look at A, the world is turning back to nuclear energy. See this? Yet today nuclear energy is crucial once again. Right? So going by this, I'd say A is true. The world has been compelled by Russia to embrace nuclear energy. Actually can't say. Okay, C, nuclear energy was rejected in the past as the primary source of energy. True. D, nuclear power will help curb carbon emissions. True. France has replaced Russia as Europe's main energy supplier. Can't say. So A, C and D are definitely not our answers. Now the problem is B and D are both can't say. So we have to compare the two. One of these two is a stronger argument. The one which is stronger is the one that we retain, and the other one can then be marked as our answer. So if you notice, it does talk about Russia's energy war. So Russia has been cited a factor. So if I look at B, the world has been compelled by Russia, it's partly true. It is at least partly true, but we have absolutely nothing to support E. And that is why between B and E, if I have to choose one which cannot be inferred, then I'd prefer E over B. So for question number 8, our answer is E. And I am actually really glad that a lot of us have chosen the right one for this. And here comes the next question for you. On your screens, please start. This will require you to have a better overview of the passage. So please make sure that you do justice to it while reading. So in an ideal world, I would like to give you the question and the options both on the same slide, but I can at least tell you that it will require a better overview. So please do that. And drop in a yes the moment you've finished reading it. And AJ, your yes is so quick that I'm assuming it is not about this particular question, this particular paragraph. So 3 yeses and I take you over to the question. Kuldeep, that is why we've marked it as can't say. That is why it could not be inferred. Remember, the question had except. Okay, so I've received 3 dones. So I'll count till 5 and then I'll switch. Here is your question. So tell me, what should we mark? Oh, we have Jack the Ripper, we have Sicario, movie buffs. Okay. So now that you have looked at the options, now that you know what is being asked, let me take you back to the paragraph once. Here it is. What does it do? So in a 2017 survey, we found that workers report experiencing a sizable voice gap. Then in the second study, in this we found that today's workers want forms of voice and representation that go well beyond traditional unions. So can I say that the first study has found an issue and the second study basically says that workers are demanding alternate solutions? So there is one solution that was probably being used, traditional unions, and now they want to have something beyond traditional unions. And if we look at these answer choices, A says the first study defines the concept, second study uses the concept in a specific context. No, there is nothing which has been defined here per se. Okay, the study found voice gap and then the voice gap was defined for our benefit. That was not the focus of the study. B, the first study shows the intensity of the problem. It shows that there is a problem. And second study shows limitation of the existing solutions. No. Did the second study tell us why traditional unions are no longer being favored, or why at least some of the workers are not happy with traditional unions? So we can definitely rule it out on the basis of the second half. C, highlights the existence of a problem, works, highlights the need for new ways of solving it, true, apart from traditional unions. D, first study shows the frustration and second study shows the inability of unions in addressing them. No. The same issue, in the second half, the same issue that we had with B. E, focuses on the need for fair representation. The second study discusses forms of representation. Which forms of representation have been discussed? All we have been told is that workers want something other than traditional unions. So even E can be ruled out. So the best answer for us is C. So question number 9, C. And with that, let's enter the double digits. Question number 10 is going to be a conclusion question, and this is a good place to address what was asked earlier, the difference between inference and conclusion. So difference number 1. An inference is always unstated, whereas a conclusion can be stated or unstated. Second, an inference can be a main point or a tangential point, whereas a conclusion is always the main point that is being made by the argument. Now, what do I mean by main point and tangential point? I won't get into real detail because they'll require a lot of writing, a lot of examples, but let's think of it this way. If I say all cars are cycles and all cycles are toys. Then on the basis of these two, we can conclude that all cars are toys, right? You can call it an inference, you can call it a conclusion, but then hang on. When I say all cars are cycles, from this, I can also conclude that some cycles are cars. So you notice this one is not the main point being made, but it is true nonetheless. It is not the main point that is being made. However, it is true nonetheless. So this one right here. So because it is tangential, because it is not the main point being made, we can call it an inference, but we'd prefer not calling it a conclusion. So that's basically the difference. If you want to get greater detail, join me in one of my critical reasoning classes where we are talking about these issues, and I would love to dive deep, carrying a significantly greater chunk of examples. So here is your 10th question. What's your take? So your answer for question number 10. And Sufyan, this time around, because I've managed to fit both of them on the single page, I did. The process will still remain the same, okay? So inference or conclusion, just use true, false, can't say. Start from there. Think of the difference between inference and conclusion only when you come across a situation where two of the answer choices are being labeled as true and you're being asked for conclusion instead of inference, or inference over conclusion. It's only then that it will come into play. Normally, we won't even bother with it. Okay, so a brilliant chemist is generally not a brilliant researcher. Can't say. B, the writings of Carey Mullis reveal his extraordinary innovative intelligence. Look at this here. It reveals the workings of an uncannily original scientific mind. So true. Right? I mean, the guy also happens to have a Nobel Prize on top, man. Seriously. Okay, C. For his multidisciplinary work and his writings, false. It was provided to him for developing the PCR technique. Okay, D. Carey Mullis broke the traditional drab style of writing used by scientists. Can't say. How do we know that the others wrote in a drab way? Cannot be derived from this particular paragraph. And E, Carey Mullis was a jack of all trades in the scientific world. Can't say. It's just that he happened to don some more hats. But those hats could have been beyond science, no? So when he talks about global warming or O.J. Simpson trial, poisonous spiders to HIV, is not necessarily remaining in the domain of science. Within science, perhaps he was laser focused on, or laser sharp focus on, he maintained a laser sharp focus on just one area. So that is why our answer to 10th question should be option B. Everything else is can't say or false. In case you think otherwise, let me know in the comment box and I'd love to discuss it and deal with it. I'll tell you why. I hope I've given you reasons to rule out every answer choice. right? Moving on to the, so once again, B is the right answer. Here is your next question on your screen. Oh yes, Deepak, in the previous question, B was indeed the right answer. Right now, I'm just waiting for 3 people to say yes, we've read the paragraph, and I'll give you the question. I don't know about you, but I find this paragraph very funny, huh? Goats as new dogs. No, I mean, I think even the assumption used in this particular argument is pretty shaky for me. But let's see. Fantastic. So Sufyan, Zenifa, one more guy, one more. Yes. And from Guru Prasad and Priyanshi. Terrific, terrific. Here is the question for you. So, which of the following is definitely true according to the passage? Tell me. Oh, yes, Guru Prasad, I happen to share your opinion. Although some astrologically inclined friends of mine tend to think of me as a goat. So, never know. Okay, so we are getting A, we're getting E. We've also managed to get C. So let's look at, when goats look at a smiling person, they are happy. So if I say that attracted, they're attracted towards that is equal to happy. If I accept it, then A is true. When they look at a frowning person, goats get afraid of that person. Now, when you're attracted to somebody, you're excited, you're happy. That's still plausible. But dislike versus afraid, I mean, all of us hate eating certain dishes, right? We look at that dish and we have this intense dislike for that dish, but that doesn't mean that we are afraid of them. So B's definitely can't say. No data provided for what happens when they look at a straight-faced person, so can't say. When they look at a frowning person, they get sad. They are not attracted to that person. That does not mean that they are sad. I mean, you're attracted to some people. You're not attracted to the majority. Does that mean that you're sad at a party when you are not attracted towards anyone? No, you can still, dance to the music, have fun. I'm thinking of the party that some of us are going to afterwards. Okay, E, when they look at a smiling person, goats run towards them. They are attracted, yes, but does attracted mean that they run towards? If we assume them to be equals, then it will be true. But then between A and E, which assumption is better? Which assumption is closer to reality? Attracted is equal to happy is closer to being true than attracted is equal to run towards. And when you're attracted towards somebody, you run towards that person seriously. Does not sound very plausible, huh? And the paragraph does not exactly tell us any of the two things exactly. So the assumption that we're making in A is a more plausible assumption. It is an assumption which is more likely to be true. That is why I will opt for A over E. So question number 11, A. So you remember, in fact, right now we are getting into can't says in CR. When we solve the decision making section, we do that a lot. Okay, so more on that later though. Here is the next one. Question number 12. Here is the passage. This can be a little tricky for some of us. So what will you choose as your answer? Tell me. नहीं सत्यांशु, क्या ही बात होती, क्या मतलब है? Then you would struggle, then you would think twice before making yourself more attractive, because then people will keep running towards you and then eventually you'd have to run away from them. Seriously. But wishing that for you it comes true in the next year. Don't forget to drop me a yes when you're done reading it. Let us see who the top 3 are going to be, or top 5 are going to be. Let's see. No, Satyam, no sarcasm. Genuine wish, man. Genuine wish. So all I wish is for all your wishes to come true. All I wish for is for all your wishes to come true. Exam से पहले grammatically correct होना बड़ा ज़रूरी है. Okay, so here is the question. I can see that a couple of options here can be tricky. So be on your guard and then choose the right one. Okay, so I have 3, 4 answers. So first up, does the paragraph suggest that averting catastrophes seems easy and is actually even easier? Does not even talk about it. In fact, it says that it requires a lot of things to happen together. That sounds impossible, but they do end up happening. And then to fix that, so option A should actually be can't say. B is true. If you plug even one of the holes, the accident cannot happen. I am in agreement with C until this point. But this in a particular order is something that I choose can't say for. Accidents cannot be averted since a chain of events has to be averted. Is the paragraph saying that you can never avoid them? Not necessarily, so can't say. And E takes you beyond the scope of this paragraph. I don't think any of you is any way going to choose this. So there is only one answer choice, which is true, option B. So let's mark that as our answer. So I thought that B versus C is going to be an issue because C was correct until a point, but then in a particular order, many events happening in a particular order, that is not given in the passage. So that order thing was not talked about. That is where it becomes can't say. So for question number 12, B is our right answer. Here comes the next. So what's your take? Just read it and then we'll move on. Guys, I'll politicians from anywhere, yeah. Though it is easy to guess which politician this particular paragraph talks about. Done reading it? This was a smallish paragraph. I think I can take you over to the question now. I'll do that in 5 seconds. Here it is. So look at it. You are being asked for politicians' intent. I'd say this is closer to an RC question. Remember, in reading comprehension, we get asked about the purpose of the author. So this is closer to that than critical reasoning. So let's see if you can answer this correctly. Satyanshu, it's possible. I mean, it's possible. So what was the intent? Okay, if I look at A, it does not talk about why he had, it mentions only one of the tactics, does not even mention the other one where he attacked his opponent on gender. If I just have to look at it superficially, B is better than A. So A can definitely be ruled out. B, yes, this is what he did, but what was his intent behind it? He used this tactic, but what was his intent? So his intent was to ask or to appeal to the voters to elect him over his other over his opponent, right? Look at it, it's a political speech. So the intent is to influence the voters into voting him and not his opponent. So whatever was done with that intent. Now, did he offer an argument? So whenever we want to influence others, what do we do? When we influence others, we appeal to the other person's reason or the other person's emotion or the other person's character. That's the core of influence. You appeal to someone's reason, emotion or character. So he did not provide any argument. It was just an ad hominem attack, attacking somebody for his gender and then talking about a question that was not even asked, which may resonate with his vote bank. So it was definitely not an appeal to reason. It was definitely not an appeal to character. So we can simply say that it was an appeal to his voters. So that is where E scores over the rest. See, he did not argue that security is more important than economy. That argument has not been made. To appeal to the macho voters and use fear as a tool to lure voters, was he appealing only to the macho voters? And are we saying that macho voters are sexists? They love hearing remarks against women, against fairer sex? No. So even this can be eliminated. Closer to RC, but for 13th, E is your best option. Here comes the 14th question, which is more of a main idea question, but let us see. So the argument will have, no, I think this is the only slide that it has. I am not even sure. Let's see. The argument will have one more page. Okay, so be mentally ready that the argument does not just end here. Satyanshu, what does macho mean? We're not talking about male voters. We're talking about macho voters. Macho voters are normally going to be, yes, males, but not all the males. Okay, macho is basically somebody who is overtly masculine. Somebody who behaves in a way which is considered typical of a man, that is, behaving in an aggressive manner, okay, or behaving in a way where you do not show any emotion. So the traditional notion of a man, if you behave in that manner, then you could be considered macho. Anji, those of us who are joining us now, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if these questions are helping you get a deeper insight into the world of critical reasoning, don't forget to show that by pressing on the like button. Satyanshu, rowdy types at times, yes, but not always. Rowdy has a stronger negative connotation than macho. So in terms of tone, I think they do not entirely agree, but in the same ballpark, yes. Can I take you over to the next slide now? Okay, so here comes the next slide. And then you'll have the questions. So just be ready. And here comes the question. But I just want to emphasize this one tiny little thing. The question asks us which of the following cannot be inferred from the passage. So be ready to deal with that. Cannot once again. हाँ सत्यांशु, इन अ वे यस, इन अ वे यस. छोटा भाई भी क्या यार, जैट में अगर मैं प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर्स देखूँ ना, तो कुछ कुछ साल आपको ऐसे दिखेंगे जिसमें बहुत छोटे छोटे एक एक पैराग्राफ के पैसेजेस थे. I remember one particular year of XAT when we had just one sentence followed by a question. It's rare, but XAT has done all sorts of things. CR that looks like RC, RC that looks like CR. So pretty fluid. And all of these are obviously asked in the same section, so it doesn't even matter. Whoa, Zenifa, that was quick. That was quick. Hey, was that language Japan's most endangered language? No. Rukyu's geography, or what, I don't know how to pronounce it. Let's call it Raoqiao. Raoqiao's geography is a factor in the demise of its endangered languages. True. Its location made it more vulnerable. Japan's policies were an important factor in the near extinction. True. Raukaun's languages and Japanese are very different despite their common linguistic origin. Yes, English and German, they're different. So were these two languages. So that's true. The American efforts to save that the Raukaun languages proved counterproductive. True, despite their best effort, they only hastened its demise. But A is can't say, leaning towards false. Right? Because it was not a Japanese language. And that is why it goes beyond the scope of this argument. And that is why the correct answer is indeed option A. And here comes the next question. So the paragraph is on your screen. Read it carefully and then come back for the question. Just drop in a yes and I'll take you over to the question. The next slide will have the question, so do let me know the moment you're done reading it. Yes, Zenifa, when it comes to assumptions, inferences, I think all the indirect questions, elimination approach is actually a smarter way forward. If you keep ruling them out, that becomes easy. Sachin, the Japanese thought of it that way. Not the original inhabitants. That was the Japanese take on that language. When they got those islands and when they captured those islands. That's how they kind of justified not teaching that language, the inhabitants' native language, despite they being distinctly different. Are we done? Should I take you to the questions? Okay, Satyanshu is done reading. And here comes the question. Just waiting for one more person to say it's yes. Okay, done. So here is one more. So what's your answer for question number 15? Maelstrom. Satyanshu, do you know what a whirlpool is? Something akin to that. You remember whirlpool in the water that sucks everything in? So something along those lines, and the word has a negative connotation. Okay. All right. C says in an individual with mixed results. Let me take you back to the paragraph. Notice all the words that are being used here are negative. See, maelstrom. Then look at the examples: lynching, prudence turns into folly, caution into recklessness, decency into savagery. So all the transformations are negative. But the option here says mixed results. That's a question. I mean, isn't the paragraph against it? So that is why I have some hesitation, whereas E clearly says that it can bring out the worst in us. So that's definitely true. Whereas in C, we'll have this issue with respect to the mixed results. And that is why if I have to choose one of the two, I will choose option E over option C. So that's it about this particular session, but the series is not over. So make sure that you use the learnings that we've had from this argument today. And we'd see you once again on the 2nd of January now, where we talk about GK, and 3rd, where we talk about decoding algebra and modern maths. In between, you'd also have more sessions on decision making, etc. at this very channel. So make sure that you stay tuned and you subscribe to us. And on January 8th, once the exam is over, do join us for the analysis of the paper. Right? So at 7:30, we'd have the first impression, and then later on, of course, a lot of inputs from a lot of different individuals. And in case you know of people who are preparing for CAT 23, or maybe if you are preparing for CAT 23, we have started our 3rd batch. So join us without any delay. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate in reaching out to us at any of these platforms. We are always there for you. So with that, I take leave of you in 22, and I look forward to meeting you once again in the next year. Don't forget to hit the like button before you exit. And with that, lots of love, lots of wishes for each one of you for the coming year and forever. Until then, until we meet next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch, and party safely. Okay? Take care.